Hi, it's Terry Gaines. I'm going to give you some assembly tips and show you how to make this fun card. It is a wiper card. When you pull on the ends, you have a little wiper that pops up, and in this one we have a fish attached to it. It's using the Best Catch bundle and a few other of the Stampin' Up! Supplies with a little happy birthday message. It's great for a Happy Father's Day card. You could have that attached to it as well, or instead. So what I'm going to do is do all the prep work for the card before I start the assembly, and off on the side here I have all the measurements and the colors of the cardstock that I'm using, and also you can hop over to my blog and get that information on a printout. So we start out for the card base. We need two 4 1/4 by 8 1/2 pieces of cardstock that are scored. My tip to you is to cut the cardstock at 8 1/2. It's already 8 1/2 on the width, and score your 1 1/2 and 3, and then cut it at 4 1/4. That just saves you a little bit of work there. Then the fold on these is a valley fold and a mountain fold on both of them. A little bit of prep work we can do ahead of time here that I did was I put tear and tape on both of the end panels, that 1 1/2 inch panel. So this is going to be our card base, so I'll set that aside. The next piece of cardstock we have that we need for the mechanics is a 1 1/2 by 3. We need a diagonal fold from the center here at 1 1/2 to this bottom point. To do that, I use the Simply Scoring tool. And I place my 3-inch side along the edge, take the stylus and make an indentation at 1 1/2. Now this diagonal fold score line has to be from this point to this point. So because of that, I'm going to turn it upside down. Now it needs to be from this point to this point. I'm going to mark my stylus in the number 5 track here. Keep the stylus in there, put the point at number 5, mark that 1 1/2 inch indentation I made right at the track. Then I lift the stylus, go in number 5, and then I now have my diagonal fold. This also needs tear and tape. Tear and tape is the best adhesive to use when you're making a project that your cardstock is no longer flat, because your cardstock is going to want to go back to its original state. So that's the prep work we need to do on that. So we'll set that aside as well. Then we also have that's all for the mechanics, 3 pieces for the mechanics. The rest of the pieces are for embellishing. So we have a little card on the front. So this is a piece of Crumb Cake Cardstock that is 2 3/4 by 8, and I've scored that. We have a Mossy Meadow that's going to go on top of that. That's the 2 1/2 by 3 3/4. So that's going to be the card front there. Inside the card and on the outside we have Very Vanilla, and I pre-stamped those. So we have the outside of the card and inside of the card. So I've got that pre-stamped. And as I mentioned, I'm going to do all the prep work ahead of time. Also for the crumb cake, we have a 4 1/4 by 5, or I'm sorry, 4 by 5 1/4, and 2 that are 1 1/2. I'm going to have to change that. That's 1 1/4 by, that should be 1 1/4 by 4. So I'll change that on my instructions. So 1 1/4. So all 3 of these need to be stamped. I stamped Happy Birthday from the Perennial Birthday stamp set for that one. And then the background and another one of these, or the 4 by 5 1/4, and one of these is stamped with the antique paint background. I'm going to show you quickly how I use my background stamps. I keep them flat on the table, and I work with them with the rubber side up, take my ink pad, and then just tap the ink onto the stamp. And then what I'm going to do is take the cardstock, place that right down, and then I'll take a piece of scratch paper, cover that up, and apply some pressure. This way my fingers don't get the ink on the excess ink, the scratch paper does, and then we have that background. So we've got that part done. Then we have that done. Then what we need to do on the crumb cake, that's 2 by 2.5, is stamp the fish using the Mossy Meadow Cardstock. We're going to cut that out with the die cutting machine and the framelits, and then we'll have this. What I did was I wanted to add a little bit of coloring in here, so I took a Wink of Stella. If you take your Wink of Stella and just color in like a blender pen, it will bleed the ink and start filling this in to get a little bit of glimmer on here. When I'm all done with that, I just scribble this until my Mossy Meadow ink is off, and then I'm all set, just like new. So we have that for our card. So we'll set all this aside. And I believe the last piece we need to do on this, for this project, is the cattails. This is a 2.5 by 2 3/4. Run that through your die cutting machine with the framelit to get the die cut of the cattails. What I did want to do is add some color to this, and what I found was the marbled background was perfect for this. Again, the background stamps I just leave rubber side up. I'm going to apply some ink by just tapping it. When you tap it, you just get it on the surface, you don't get into the crevice. Then I'm going to find any of these swirls here, place the cattails down, cover that up, and apply some pressure. And here we have some ink on those cattails, which just really dresses it up. This is a great stamp for that. Unfortunately, it's soon to retire, so you want to get that as soon as possible. All right, all our pieces are ready, so now we can assemble. To assemble, what we're going to do is take one of these and turn them upside down and have this panel on the right hand side. To show you this, I do have a diagram on my website to show you this. So we want this on this right side. Then we're going to take this piece of the cardstock that we've diagonally scored, and this point is going to be right at this top edge of your cardstock and in the second panel. So what I'm going to do is take the tear and tape off, and this gets placed right in this section here. Okay, so again, this is upside down, and this is the front of your card. We don't have it decorated yet, so we don't have to worry too much about that, but that would be the front of your card if you've got that decorated. The next thing we're going to do is attach these two pieces together. So the tear and tape is going to go on opposite sides like such. So what I do is I only do one at a time. If I have the paper backing off the other side at the same time, if it just falls onto the cardstock, then it's so strong it tends to stay in place. Also, for an aid to do this, I'm bringing the Simply Scoring back in. What I like to do is place my cardstock down that has the backing tape taken off with the tear and tape. And then what I'm going to do is this is going to go on this side. I'm going to hold this down. I'm going to run this, just leaving it up so it doesn't touch the adhesive until it hits the side wall. Bring it down, and that helps me get a nice square alignment for adhering those two together. Then what I'm going to do is hold this back panel or end panel back, take the tear and tape off, and while I have that going flat, then I'm going to just bring that together. So now we have our wiper card, and your wiper is on the left side and it comes up. Sometimes you need to do this a little bit. You just need to get the scoring to fit kind of right. That's the mechanics of the card. The rest of the pieces we have prepped are all for the assembly of the card. So let's just quickly do that. The fish is going to be on the wiper. Couple tips about that. Anything you put on the wiper cannot be beyond You cannot have it on this, beyond this part of the cardstock. Otherwise it will show when the wiper's down inside the card. So be aware of that. And if you had a really tall image you're going to put on here, make sure it's short enough that it will fit back into the card when it goes down. So for this, we're going to put tear and tape on that also. And what I'm going to do is just place it right back here on the bottom portion of the fish. Take the backing paper off. And I'm gonna put that right like that. It is important to not have any adhesive show on the back because you don't want this to close, and if your adhesive was exposed on the back, then when you close that, you would close it shut or tape it shut. So the assembly for the rest of the card would be, I'm going to quickly do that, would be putting these side panels on, and I'm going to start with the middle one. And I think I put it this way. Let's see. I did put it this way. I'm not sure that it matters, but put that one in that direction. And my video, I'm going to go ahead and assemble all of these pieces. And I'm using the snail adhesive. For this, you don't need to use your tear and tape because this is all a flat image. We're not changing the shape. This is just adhering cardstock to cardstock. For our card, as I mentioned, we're going to adhere these together for the front of the card. What I like to do is put my adhesive on the smaller piece that I'm layering on the next size up. I watch the diagonal corners, and if I've cut this all square, they should be equal. If I watch two corners, the rest should fall into place. And the card, this is for the card front. So I'm gonna place this down. Watch these opposite two corners. And that's on the front of the card. And as I mentioned, this is a card that my monthly local technique ladies got to make. And if you're interested in joining my local technique club, please contact me. I'm also soon going to start an online technique club. So stay tuned for that information. And then we're going to take this card front, and that's going to be placed right in the center. And the cattails are applied with mini glue dots. So I'm going to place them like such. So when I place it here, I'm going to just place the mini glue dots in these top sections here. And sometimes I find it easier to pick up the mini glue dot when I want to have it in an exact position. So I'm just going to use this tool, and I am going to put 3 on. That's just going to help a little bit for to keep it in place. I'm lining it up to the edge of the crumb cake, and I need to move it over a little bit so I still see it's your day. Now when you open up the card, the cattails flow with that, and when you close your card, there you have your wiper card. So pop over to my blog to get all the information. If you found me via YouTube, in the comment section, there'll be a direct link to my blog post where you'll find the supply list, measurements, instructions for this project. There'll be a PDF you can download with a direct link to my Stampin' Up! Store to purchase the supplies. Thanks for stopping by. Hope you enjoyed creating this project with me.